Do you find it hard to explain to friends and family what you now do? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure out challenges on your own? We have created a community for ex-corporate people running their own business who want to live a life they love whilst giving back to their community. This is the Build, Live, Give show. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day. We get real with no corporate BS. And now your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to the Build, Live, Give podcast, episode number 13. I'm Paul Higgins and I'm your host today, and I've got a really special guest, a great friend of mine and someone that's really supported me, Sam Ghoreyshi. Sam is a great friend, as I said, and he runs a group called the Money Clip Group, and we worked together at Coca-Cola, actually all the way back to 1994. Sam and I started working together, and he once had a small business, then he left, started in corporate, and then after a really successful career went back into small business, and he's just skyrocketed. His business keeps growing, and he's really a customer-centric guy and really helps people, and that's why his business has been so great. And he talks about his story of meeting a high-performance coach at Coke, and that was the trigger for him to leave, and he goes through that. And he was really a pioneer, as I said, and he helps a lot of other people leave corporate, and certainly was very helpful for me. And he also talks about a couple of causes that are really close to home, and he gives his personal experiences and why he supports those. And, you know, he's just a wonderful guy. There's loads of actionable advice, and it's really motivational listening to Sam. So grab your pens and paper for the ready. Also, the community, the Build, Live, Give community continues to grow. Loving all the 5-star reviews. Thank you for that. It's your first time listen. Please go back and listen to other episodes. And if you have been listening for a while, love you to subscribe to the podcast. That would be fantastic. So get your pens and paper ready. And now I'm going to hand you over to Sam Ghoreyshi from Money Clip Group. So, Sam, we're going to get to know a little bit more about you today, but why don't you just start with a bit of your backstory, how you got to where you are today?
Thanks, Brian. Great to be with you guys this afternoon. I started some time ago, straight out of school. I started a business, an ice cream shop, which was not so successful. Went on to, in fact, work at Coca-Cola for a number of years in various sales roles, from local, state-based to national-based roles. And basically, one of the things I found over the years was my passion about financial services, and wanting to have this first-hand experience of getting things done myself. It was at the point that colleagues and friends, etc., always used to ask for advice. So I decided to set up my own business 12 years ago, a financial services company. So then I could provide that proper service to the people I know and I essentially cared for in a more formalized way, and be able to look after those clients over a number of years. So basically, that's where I've ended up here today, 12 years on.
Great. And for some of the listeners, or most listeners probably don't know this, but Sam and I actually worked very closely together at Coca-Cola Amatil, and Sam and I have kept in contact, and Sam's actually does some work for my wife Linda and I and our family. So I've watched your journey, Sam, and just seen you continue to blossom. So it'll be great for other listeners to get that story. But before we sort of go there, just tell me a little bit about yourself outside of work, something that your friends or family may know that other listeners wouldn't.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start by saying I'm a real golf hack. Definitely not, you don't want me on your team if you're playing proper golf. Probably good for an Ambrose, but that's about it. Very much a cricket tragic. Seen Steve Waugh make centuries on 3 different continents over the years. So certainly that's something I love. Sports important, but probably most important in my life is really my family. My partner Jane and my 2 boys, Luca and Charlie, who obviously I love very dearly. And whenever I'm not reading something to do with the finances or seeing a client, and and or building the business, a lot of my concentration is around spending time with those guys as much as I can, and yeah, get the most out of those the times that I have with them.
Excellent, excellent. And I know you live in lovely Sydney, so you can do that nice and close to the water as you are. But on your career, I know that, as you said, you had your own business, then you went into the larger corporate and had a very successful career with Amatil, which, I certainly watched from a distance. What was sort of the key tipping point, if there was such a thing for you, to say, hey, look, I want to go out and do my own thing, all those 12 years ago?
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a number of different things that led to me deciding to start a business. Firstly, having owned a business before and tasted it, I guess at some point I wanted to go back into my own business. I certainly loved working for Coke, even to the last day that I was there. I really enjoyed what I was doing there. The big thing for me though was this hobby that I had about financial services, and making that a commercial enterprise. And it did all start from just helping the friends. So and having had an experience, myself with other financial planners and mortgage brokers, etc., accountants, I felt that that's something that's an area that I could go into. But I've got to say, it wasn't 12 years ago that I decided to leave. It was at least 2 years before that I guess the seed was sown, internally, and bubbling inside. And for me, one of my biggest challenge really was the fact that I actually did love working for Coke and having to leave that corporate or the comfort of climbing the ladder and starting fresh. There were two particular I guess things that happened or three in fact that happened that made my decision, I guess, in some ways easier. One was the gentleman that used to be my sales rep at my ice cream shop, Paul, was a really great guy, and one of the reasons why I actually applied to work for Coke. He actually passed away of illness in his, I think, late 30s. So that was firstly a wake-up call for me. Secondly, I was going through the company, we were going through a high-performance program through a gentleman called Andrew Meikle. And a lot of my conventional wisdom, thinking, thoughts, etc., was very much challenged through that process in terms of what is achievable and what living life means and achieving great things is really. And then thirdly, one day, and this is, I guess, the moment that was very much the tipping point. One day I was thinking, I'm going to continue with my career here. This is in my early 30s at that time. I'm going to continue with my career here. I'm going to build a successful career, see how far I can go. And then by the time I'm in my early 40s, I'm going to leave and start a business. Immediately after I thought that, I thought, why am I waiting for the inevitable? Why don't I just leave as soon as I can possibly do, such that I actually have a great business by the time I'm in my 40s? And in fact, I guess that was probably the tipping point that made me, really move forward and put the motion into action in terms of working out how I'm going to leave my career at Coke behind, and then go on to the next great thing that I was going to do, which was starting this business.
Great. And look, I really admire you, Sam. If I look back then, that there wasn't many people that actually left to do what you did. I know you had to study. I know you had to, go on and do things that were well out of your comfort zone to establish yourself. And back then, it just wasn't the done thing. No. I know for me, 6 years ago, people still looked at me strangely. I think now a lot of our colleagues and friends are looking at us and saying, oh, actually, that might be more attractive than the situation I'm in myself. But back then, it was pioneering in a way. So well done. And you sort of touched on a couple of the key fears there, but what were some of the other key fears that were on your mind when you finally took that step?
Yeah. I guess, I was untested in the financial services. I certainly didn't come from a financial planning background, accounting, or banking. So certainly I didn't have any of those. But also at the same time, I didn't have any of the preconceived ideas of how things should be run in those businesses in that same manner either. So being very much untested, I guess, was a real big issue. But I've got to say, having gone through the Mutual File program, what it did instill in me was certainty of success. So I had a much more comfort around what I was going to do, despite the fact that I'd never been in that industry before, and just basically giving it a go. One thing that most people, I guess, fear also when you start out a business is cash flow. Do I have enough money to get going and all that type of stuff? So I just basically tried to, wherever possible, reduce that dependency or reduce those issues down such that it wasn't going to be an issue for me. And in my case, what I decided to do was basically save 15 months of my salary. And essentially once I had 15 months of my salary, then I handed in my resignation with essentially a 4-month notice to my manager at the time, a really great guy. So then there was a good changeover as well, and I think having had that, it meant that some of those fears of cash flow, what if it's going to work, etc., probably didn't resonate as much with me, because I knew that I could continue exactly live the way I was living before for at least 12 to 15 months before I would really feel it. And that bought me the right amount of time to do things properly when I first set up the business.
Yeah, no, that's a great lesson and a great learning for people listening to this. And my quick tip on that is the times 4 rule. So think that it's going to take 4 times as long to be successful as you think, and you're going to have about 25% of the income that you plan, and you should be about on the number. So what help did you receive? I know, not right back then. If you can remember back then, great. But since then, what sort of help have you received in making this transition?
I guess firstly, I had very supportive colleagues, and which obviously helped in terms of having a client base to begin with. All the learnings I had at Coke was definitely useful from a great mental attitude perspective, and also business-wise, numbers-wise, dealing with people, and so on. Over the years, the type of help I've had is things like the mastermind programs, networking groups, and so on, and that has really helped in terms of me being able to firstly work on my pitch, for example, work on the way that I talk about the business, and having that helping hand along the way. The other thing I did do, and this is later in the life of the new business, I actually engaged with a consultant, a business consultant, who helped me shape the new look of our business, processes, etc., for the future. And we worked together on a monthly basis for a period of time. So 1 day a month, 2 day a month, etc. And I think where the big help came when I actually hired him for 6 months. He sat in our office every day and did a fabulous job of basically helping me build processes and systems and capabilities intrinsically as well, that helped us build the business the way that we have built it.
Excellent. That's great advice. And, I think a lot of listeners that are just about to leave or have just left, I think to get someone like that can be really important, because I saw your business. You were doing well, Sammy, but I really saw your business take off after you worked with that person. So if I fast forward to today, when you walk into a networking event or into to a social occasion, gathering, what do you say you do? When someone says to you, hi, Sam, what do you do? How do you describe what you do today?
Yeah. I guess I'm a CEO of a financial services company, so I do talk about that. But what I in particular want to convey is our primary aim. So our primary aim is to basically work with our clients to achieve, it's a French word, joie de vivre. I'm not sure if you've heard that term before or not, but it means hearty enjoyment of life or joy of life if you've heard of it. Most of the things we do is intrinsic in value, even though there's dollars and cents attached to it. So I guess if I could work with our clients to understand what's important to them in their life and then bring a program in place to help them achieve that, be it that, they take less stress, achieving more time for the things that's important to them in life, or obviously even have more money so then they can do some of the things that they want to do, then essentially they're the type of things that we concentrate on. So the thing that I want to leave them in that first meeting is about, or that first catch up, is that we help our clients achieve joie de vivre.
Great. And how does that differ, Sam, to some of the experiences you had in corporate, particularly, in Coke? Does it differ, or if it does, how does it differ between the feeling there versus your own business and the impact you're making now?
Yeah. I mean, we did some great things in corporate, but I mean, certainly there's no joy in corporate as there is in the business. I mean, the things that we do, we have clients that share very intimate information about their dreams, goals, aspirations, challenges, and so on with us. It's very humbling to be entrusted with that information to begin with. And then to be able to then turn that around and be able to provide, really great outcomes for the clients over time, which, has this personal connection, bringing that smile to their face, working on that abandoned happiness. I mean, you certainly don't get that in corporate. There might be pockets of areas where, some people make that impact from time to time, but certainly it's not widespread. I know for a fact that what we do makes a difference to our clients, and they feel great. So from that perspective, it's very much an honor to be able to serve our clients and be able to deliver this solution to them. That's very much about joy of life, not about the next budget or next execution thing or whatever that might be.
Yeah, and as I said at the front to listeners that we've been working together for some time as my advisor, and I always remember just before I left Coke, you gave me some sound advice around multiple credit cards and other things, saying you will be treated different once you leave corporate and running your own business. And I know that. Yeah. Your advice was very timely and made a really big difference to me leaving. So I thank you for that. And, I just wanted to give listeners first-hand experience that Sammy definitely practices what he preaches, and I've certainly been at the happy receiving end of that. So based on today, the Money Clip Group and a group, it's a series of companies. Sort of how do you make revenue today?
So we started, unlike most people that say they're going to start a business, day one, I said I'm going to go and start two businesses. We'll start a mortgage broking business and a financial planning business. Later, we added tax and accounting, and over the last 2 years, I also added real estate advice to that mix. So I guess we have 4 different avenues to produce a revenue. So through the work we do for the mortgage broking, we receive payments from the bank for introducing clients to the bank with the right solutions. For financial planning, we fee for service. We provide, we build the roadmaps for the clients that they can use to achieve their joie de vivre, and then we charge them accordingly based on a fee scale. And that includes initial fee and ongoing management of the program. Tax and accounting is very much a time-based system at the moment. We do do some packages for clients that require that, especially the small medium enterprise type businesses, whereby they outsource a lot of their things to do with the tax and accounting to us. And then on the real estate is all about advice. It's not about really selling property to you. We can set up an agency if you want to. I can do buyer's agency as well. I'm actually more so in the area of the strategic investment advice about how you should build a property portfolio over a period of time, 8 to 15 years, so that you can then harness the revenue from that for the future. So yeah, and I guess the big thing a big lesson from that has been for me in particular, having gone through GFC. Well, we didn't really feel GFC because we had multiple revenue streams, and at any given time, they were they were able to offset each other in a really good way. So that's worked out well.
Great, excellent. And I know, Sam, one of the things that attracted me to you is, other than our relationship, is the fact that you give advice based off what you do. So there's a lot of people out there that give great advice, but they don't have skin in the game. I think one of the great things is you have skin in the game as well. And as far as some of the biggest challenges that you face today in growing, I know your team's growing, you've changed offices multiple times, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you face as you grow your business?
Yes, that is true. We're actually just recently moved into our 4th office in just over 10 years. Every time we've grown by 50% or 100% compared to the previous size. Even with the place that we've moved in, we have room to have 4 to 5 new team members to join us. Since December, I've put on 4 people, so we're pretty much full already. My biggest challenge that I find as I grow the business is all around people. People management, bringing them together, the culture of the business, to make sure that we have this corporate way of doing things, but a family way of delivering it to our clients. It has that very much homely feel to it. And of course, making sure that I can duplicate my time as best as possible, and that very much comes down to good training, which is obviously a big challenge, to make sure you deliver good training to the team and making them accountable for the areas that they're responsible for, basically. I see that as probably my biggest challenge in the next little while, as I bed down the team, look for new team members as well, and making sure that we're good to go in terms of being able to serve our clients.
Great. And what's some of the best advice you've received to date around some of these challenges?
In terms of those challenges, I guess, if you got someone good, hang on to them. That's the first thing. Be flexible, and provide the environment that, the team can work in, and make sure that, you do appreciate the work that the team do, and you tell them that you appreciate that. I guess, that sometimes if you're really busy, it's easy to forget, doing those little things. At the end of the day, it comes down to that, the saying, you help people get what they want, and yours will follow. So I'll continue to work on making sure that I have a formidable team, and in having a formidable team, then everything else will follow.
Okay, great. And the next section is about live. So, tell me about a typical day, if there is such a thing as a typical day for you. If there is, what does that look like?
I do have a varied weeks. There are some things that are that happens literally every week. So I do go to gym. I do obviously have kids and family time. Wherever possible, I try to avoid doing work on the weekend, or I try to make sure that the kids are looked after, etc. at bedtime before I do get any work done. We have team meetings, and so the financial planning team in particular, we meet on Mondays. The mortgage team, we meet on Tuesdays, and we go through our priorities and the work that needs to get done. For the accounting, we do probably a little bit more ad hoc catch-ups. I I try to, as much as possible, have as many client meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if possible, so that then I can have days that we can actually get work done. Um, Meetings can take a lot of time out, so then if I can restrict the timing or the disruptions between those, then that definitely helps. I also spend, roughly speaking, an hour and a half to 2 hours a day just reading. Now, whether it's on things on email that I get that I read, or book, or updates, something to do with education, or laws, legislations, or strategy that potentially we can use, or even researching something new that we could apply for our clients. We're very much a first-hand experienced advisors. So basically, I only really recommend to clients what I'm willing to use for ourselves and use. So to test those and get those done, they do take a bit of time, over a period of days. And I see reading as a really important piece of making sure that we are ahead of the curve for our clients. Our clients look for that. So if I was a customer, I would want that from my advisor. So I guess I'm trying to do exactly what I would expect from my advisor for my clients as well. I'm a member of a networking group, BNI Face in Sydney CBD. It's a pretty big group. We meet Friday mornings. We have face-to-face meetings, etc., as well outside that. And Friday, pretty much morning to lunchtime, is dedicated to that, and a little bit more throughout the week in terms of catching up and understanding about other people's businesses, so then we can be valuable to them. That basically takes care of some of the ongoing activities, etc., that happens here in Moneyclick.
Okay, brilliant, great. Thanks for that explanation, Sam. So the next section is around give, and I know prior to going live with this podcast, you mentioned quite a few causes that are very close to your heart. So if you could just briefly mention those and why they're so close to you.
Yeah. I guess there are the biggest one for me personally, is an association called CCMV Australia, which is congenital psychomegalovirus Australia. It's a virus that affects pregnant women and their unborn children, that could cause brain calcification, failure of vital organs, cerebral palsy, deafness, blindness, and so on. We had a personal experience with that. How we were lucky. The CMV as a primary virus never travelled through the placenta to our second boy. So we basically we were lucky to have not had to deal with the issues that comes with that when the babies are born. So what we've done is that basically over the years we've helped the association funding their website, and currently I'm I guess you could call it the honorary national treasurer of the group. We've got tax deduction, recipient tax deductible gift status, so then we can obviously raise money, and we do that through activities throughout the year, including a winter ball that we have every year in Sydney on the 24th of June. The other thing that's been really important is to do with men's health. I've had a couple of friends of recent years who affected that, I guess, in some ways, with one of our friends passing away unexpectedly through committing suicide, and another friend in their late 30s having prostate cancer and passing away in their early 40s, a very aggressive cancer. So friends in Melbourne in particular have got a day out that they've set up. It's called White Owl. You'll be able to find them on Facebook. Again, that's on the 3rd of June each year. It's a fundraiser for Beyond Blue and the prostate charities, and it's around North Melbourne versus Carlton AFL game. being the two teams that our mates Nathan and Shing who basically followed, and both had they both had their inaugural events last year, and both raised quite a considerable amount of money, which is really, really pleasing to see. So I'll continue to make sure that we'll do that in terms of the work, because obviously CMV doesn't have a cure, so it's something that it requires money. So then research can be done to find a cure.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing your personal stories attached to that, Sam. And a lot of people have those sort of stories, but not many go and then take action on them. So well done for doing that. And that's why you're such a valuable member of the Build, Live, Give community. So the last section is around the take action section. And I know you've given me lots of tips through our dealings together. So I'd love you to pass on a few tips to the Build, Live, Give community. So the first one is, what's your number one personal productivity tip?
Look, as much as possible, I do try not to look at my emails first thing in the morning. I do get quite a considerable amount of emails, and I do find that it is limiting in terms of productivity. I'm very much of the camp that looks at that. I'm sure you've heard of that book called Eat That Frog. Try to get that one big thing done first thing in the morning, so then your day starts well, and then hopefully we'll continue that way. So certainly not looking at emails in the morning and getting that biggest item for the day ticked off, I think is the thing that sets me up for the day. Excellent.
And on your mobile phone, what are some of the key apps that you use? They're normally on your home screen, so the key apps that you use on a day-to-day basis.
So having a number of different businesses, obviously we do use different things. For task management, we use Trello. There's a loan calculator that we use for the mortgage business, and RP data to do property reports. Believe it or not, I actually have a thing called Study Music, which is basically the brain alpha waves and basically meditation type app that helps in getting me focused or being work on creativity or whatever it might be that I'm listening to. I have TED. TED as a really great podcast on there, which I use often, and Fitbit is the other one that's just been recently added. I did used to have some games on there as well. Papa Bear Saga was one of them, which was quite addictive, but I've taken that off, so I don't use that anymore in any shape or form. Of most recent times, I've added a voice recording app so that I can start recording, minutes, etc., and then basically get more productivity that way.
Great. And what's the name of that app, Sam?
It's just basically, it's called Easy Voice Recorder and Voice Drop. I use Voice Drop more because when I actually record on Voice Drop, I've got it automatically drops the file into a designated file in Dropbox.
Okay, excellent. Well, once again, we'll link both of those and others mentioned into the show notes. And you mentioned TED podcast. Any other podcast that you recommend?
So there's basically four different types of podcasts that I'm engaged with from time to time. TED was definitely the first one, and I continue to listen to that for the great things that comes out of that. There's just a video that you can see. It's by John Cleese, Creativity. It's on creativity. So if you just Google John Cleese plus creativity, it's about a 36-minute video that he did. It is an absolute awesome video. It's old, but it's timeless as to learning about how you should have the right environment for creativity. I've listened to that probably at least 15 to 20 times.
Great.
And so that's really good. I've got Spartan Up podcast. Spartan Up is a sport-based podcast, and they talk about grit in particular, and great life lessons that goes behind that. That's really recommended. London Real is the other one that I listen to. Very long video interviews, but some really outstanding people who've been interviewed, and great life lessons that's come out of that. And to be something totally different, he's actually quite crude. But there's a guy called Dan Pena, Pena, American guy that lives in Scotland. He swears a lot, but he talks about high performance and so on. And if you see past the swearing, etc., it does have some good messages that you could take and use, and so on.
Excellent. Well, they're great suggestions. So once again, they'll be in the show notes. And the last piece of advice, given your 12 years plus, time running a small business and Coke, what's one piece of advice that you'd give if someone was starting up their own business, having left corporate today?
I would say that the biggest thing that's going to make the difference for you is to know your why and hold on to that why irrespective of what happens. Because, especially when you first start, you're going to have doubtful moments. You're going to have moments where you're thinking, is this all going to come together for me or not? But, if you've got the faith to continue, and if you work on the process, don't think about the outcome as much, but just think about the process of what you got to do and do it really well. I think what you find is that doing the process over and over makes you do it better, and in serving your customers, it will definitely come back to you in many folds. And what that requires is a real conviction and resolve to continue in the face of when it's not looking so good. And I guess the only thing that goes with that is that you do have to understand that not everything you do is set in concrete. You can change. You can amend. When I first thought about starting a business, I was actually going to start a lending business in margin loans. Now imagine if I'd done that and gone through GFC. I'd have no business today. But having done some planning behind it, I just changed it. So it's okay if if you think you're flogging a dead horse, it's okay. Just get off that horse and get on a new horse and keep going.
Yeah, no, look, very wise words, great advice. So how can people find out more about you, Sam, and your business?
So I've got some presence on LinkedIn. So certainly if you do Sam Ghoreyshi or Money Clip Group on LinkedIn, please do connect with me. And we can have some great conversations over time, and obviously over time I will contribute to the Facebook as well. So you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn.
Great. And look, I think in summary for me, Sam, there's lots of people that have good intent to help, but then get lost in the busyness of life. But you've always been a person that's demonstrated not just the resolve to help people, you've actually gone ahead and done it. You've done that to me and my family. And I know plenty of other colleagues, ex-colleagues from Coca-Cola, that you've done the same. And I think that giving is at the very heart of who you are. And that's why we love seeing you being so successful, Sam. And it's great for you to share your stories with the Build, Live, Give community today. So we wish you every success in the future, and we love to see more of you in the community.
Thank you, Paul, and I look forward to hearing of other people's successes and their stories as well. So then we can all learn from that.
Excellent. Great. Have a great day, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give show. If you found this show helpful, please share it with others so we can build businesses, live great lives, and give back to the community. If you would like to join the BLG community, go to our website, www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.